It's time to accelerate. Hey friends, this is Andy. Welcome to episode 593 of Accelerate the Sales Podcast of Record. Joining me on the show today is my guest, Diego Ventura. Diego is the CEO at noHold. noHold provides an AI-based knowledge management system for the enterprise. And in today's episode, we're going to peek into the future a bit and talk about the role of AI, artificial intelligence, in interacting with your customers. There's this whole developing world out there, virtual agents and virtual assistants that are having dialogues with buyers to help the buyers identify specific solutions to their requirements. And it's really sort of a more effective, perhaps more interactive method to find information, let's say, in place of doing just a regular search. But Diego and I are going to talk about that, but also get into the role AI is going to play in sales in the future. And this is not more of the, AI is going to replace salespeople's story, because that's not what's going to happen. But it is about, we're going to talk about how AI will be a great tool to augment and enhance the capabilities of salespeople. And I think that is really the message that people need to take away about the role AI is going to play in the future to help sales. So anyway, join us for this conversation if you would. And if you want to see the summary notes for the conversation, go to andypaul.com/593. Get a breakdown of this and actually all the conversations on Accelerate. Finally, before we get to the interview, I want to remind you that we want to hear your questions about sales and sales management. And we've been having people now sending questions in that you'll hear on some upcoming episodes. You'll hear the answers to on our Friday episodes, my Friday episodes with my co-host Bridget Gleason. So if you have a sales challenge that you need some help, some different perspective perhaps, and some advice, then we'll answer them on the air. So send your question to me at andy@andypaul.com, and we'll choose a question. The questions that we choose to air, actually those people who submit the question win a free half-hour coaching call with me. That's a $250 value. And I've already delivered a number of those coaching calls already, so take advantage of it. So don't delay, submit your question today. Okay, let's move on. I'm excited to talk now with Diego Ventura. Diego, welcome to Accelerate.
Hi, Andy. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. So I have a standard question I ask all my guests when they first come on the show, and that is, in your mind, what is the single biggest challenge facing sales reps today?
Well, there are so many. Well, definitely, I think getting a proper introduction, speaking to the right people, continues to be a challenge. A lot of people are relying on emails, and I think that's a tool, a technology that is becoming saturated, and I think that's really the challenge. How do I make first contact with a significant party, somebody that can be interested in what I have to say and can take action? I found that to be still the biggest hurdle, because then when you make contact, if you have done the work from a marketing perspective and a positioning perspective, everything else should come. But I think getting in touch with the right person is the biggest challenge, in my opinion.
Okay, all right, well, that's fair. So how is your own sales organization structured?
Right. So we are a small company. We do something very cool, and we've been around for a long time. So it's pretty much a flat organization. Mm-hmm. But we do direct sales. We are organized by geographical area, and then within a geographical area, we have expertise for the different application that we bring to the market. So very, very straightforward, direct. We are considering amplifying our effort through channels, mm-hmm. And so we have a couple of opportunities that we're working. One with the BPO, one with actually a carrier, an organization that has a very powerful sales force.
Sure.
So we're exploring that opportunity too.
Okay. Well, tell us a little bit about noHold. So what was the impetus to start the company, and what was the hole in the market you were filling?
Yeah. So, this is my second company. The first company I had was the name was Tefra, and we did video mail, video conferencing products. We very successfully did a deal, bundling deal with Logitech. Do you remember the video cameras from the early 90s? They look like golf balls. They were very popular, and a lot of them had our software in it. So it was great bundling deal for us. We were getting paid a royalty. It was great. But part of the deal was that we were supposed to do tier 1 support. And again, we were a small organization, and Logitech was literally selling millions of those cameras per quarter. Mm-hmm. And so we found ourselves with a tsunami of the product was really good, but still, there were a lot of questions about the usability, adoption, etc. So I've always been passionate about artificial intelligence since the day in schools. My background is in computer science. I have a degree with the University of Maryland. And I said, why don't we use an expert system to help us with that? Expert system, you can think of them, today they're called chatbots or virtual assistant, right?
Right.
You could think of them as a live chat application, but instead of chatting with the person, you're chatting with an artificial intelligence. So we said we can build a virtual assistant, and that can take care of the majority of the tier 1 requests that are coming in. And so we did. But in doing that, we said, wow, we're not the only one that are going to have this problem. A lot of people will want to automate this process, either support or even pre-sales, right? Answering pre-sales questions. So at that point, I decided, it's worth starting a second company. And so I started noHold. And while the first company was bootstrapped by myself, this second one, I actually went and it became a typical VC Silicon Valley story. So I raised $15 million, 1.5. And we invested the majority of the money in the technology, and essentially the rest is history. So that's how everything started. It was a real need that we experienced, and we realized that, okay, there are going to be other companies that need the same thing.
So we're talking about, virtual agents. You said chatbots, which is probably the term people are more familiar with these days. As sort of a successor to intelligent agents. Is self-service customer service, and let's start there before I jump into sales. So self-service customer service has, been around. That was sort of a big thing back in the early 2000s, right now, and other companies sort of jumping into that. So how is the user experience different with, your intelligent agent versus, just people searching a knowledge base?
Yeah, absolutely. So the difference in the experience is while a search experience is one where you type something in, and even if the search engine supports natural language processing, meaning that you can type a question in plain English, even if the search engine supports that, the end user experience is always you type something in and the search engine comes back with a list of options that may be pertinent to what you typed in. The typical Google experience. The responsibility of sifting through those options and finding the one that is good for you is still with the end user. What we are trying to do with the AI, machine learning, artificial intelligence, virtual agents specifically, and virtual assistants, the terminology is used in the same way.
Right.
What we're trying to do with that is changing that paradigm and make it so that you can express yourself, yes, in natural language, right, in plain English, but the virtual assistant may come back with a confirming question or a clarifying question. So in our platform, our objective is how do we get you to the most specific answer for you that applies to your case as quickly as possible. So it's no longer, dear end user, you have to see through. No, I'm taking you to the specific solution, the specific piece of information that you're looking for. That's the difference. One is more of a dialogue, what we are trying to implement right now. The other one is a search. Yeah.
So in that, taking that path of a dialogue is sort of mentioned before, is that you would you may ask a clarifying question. So how does your agent know when to ask that clarifying question?
Very good. Because the idea, yes, I love that you asked that question, Andy, because the challenge is this. If I had to build a system like this, and if building that system implied that I had to script all possible permutation of a conversation with an end user, I would be never done. I mean,
there are millions, right?
Exactly. It's absolutely a non-scalable proposition.
Right.
So if you want, where we have the patents on our technology is in the ability of creating those dialogue automatically. And that's where the AI component comes in. Actually, the AI part, the artificial intelligence part, comes from two aspects, but one of them is certainly the ability of conducting a dialogue. So the technical term of the component that we use for making this happen automatically, it's called an inference engine. And the inference engine is playing a game. The inference engine assumes that the information are organized hierarchically. So I'll give you an example. Say that you're describing a product. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have information about the product organized by categories. Maybe there are installation and setup information.
Right. And just to clarify, you in this case being the vendor that's going to deploy your system, let's say.
Correct. So one category may be setup and configuration for the tool. The other one might be compatibility with other systems. The other one might be pricing and warranties. So you have the information organized. That's what the inference engine likes. So if the information is organized hierarchically, then the game that the inference engine plays to conduct this dialogue automatically is it first listens to the end user, and the end user may say, Diego, I'm interested in, is this compatible with system X? So the first thing the natural language processor will do is try to find a match in this hierarchical tree, and then the inference engine will ask question to find a pattern of continuity between different facts within the tree itself. And when he finds that pattern, then he can realistically suggest one single solution. So best way to imagine it, because I don't have a slide or a board that I can draw on, but the best way to imagine it is imagine that you have a chess board, the game chess, and you have a board, and you want to get from one edge of the chessboard to the other one, and the information are already there, are the different square. The inference engine is trying to fill in which square applies to your situation. And so it will ask first the first square on the first row, and then it will move to the second row and try to identify which one of those apply to your scenario, and so on and so forth, until it reaches the other edge. So that's technically what's going on there. But you're absolutely right. The key is, how do you conduct this dialogue without having to script them? Because that would not be possible. And that's what we have achieved.
Okay. And right now, it seems like most of the applications, at least I'm aware of in this space, are sort of doing this as textual based. But isn't that migrating to voice-based applications as well? We're seeing for customers, at least for customer care applications.
Absolutely. And I think for customer care, but you'll definitely see more and more applications for sales too. So in our specific case, we are partnering with companies like Google and Amazon to provide the voice recognition and the speech synthesis, so that we really focus on the NLU, the natural language understanding, if you want, the brain, and they provide the voice, to the understanding of the voice and the speaking of the voice, which is the speech synthesis. So in our case, we are partnering with third-party companies. There are other companies that have their own technology for doing that. But the reason I was saying that I definitely see that happening with sales application is because the application for it's really around the corner. An application for shopping for computers, where you can say, show me. You're talking to your phone and you're saying, show me all laptops that have an i7 processor, and then you get, okay, I found 343 laptop, and then you say, okay, I want the one with a 14 inches screen and the one with the 16 gigabytes of RAM, and so on and so forth. And that kind of interaction, it's totally possible. It requires two pieces of technology. One is the speech synthesis and speech recognition. The other one is what we call NLP to SQL. The ability, SQL is this very powerful database language. Sure. So the ability of taking a statement from an end user and converting it into an SQL statement, that's a very powerful thing to do. So you combine this thing together, and you will see more and more of these applications where maybe even for this Christmas, where we will be able to shop like that, which is super convenient.
So you think it's coming that soon for this type of really heavily transactional type application for purchasing, for buying something?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would not be surprised if you see some of these applications, this virtual assistant coming up before Christmas this year.
So what other examples do you have in the sales realm right now that you're working with companies on?
Yeah. So I can mention two. One, it's a customer-facing type of application, and the other one is an agent-facing application. Mm-hmm. So let me start with the customer-facing. So we call it the sales advisor. So imagine that you're about ready to buy a product, and so you're a visitor to your website, for example, right? Well, we have found that a virtual assistant has to be able to do, a sales advisor, virtual assistant, has to be able to do three things well to increase the chances that visitor becomes a prospect or even a customer. And these three things are, it has to be able to educate. So it has to know information about the product and relay those information clearly to the end user. It has to be able to cross-sell and upsell, meaning that it has to understand the scenario the end user is in and match that with what other options do I have. And I can give you an example of each if you like. And then the third capability, and this is it's a little bit more obscure and people don't think about this very often, but we're definitely found it when we did our implementation. And it's this capability, we call it advice, to match the way in which a prospect is thinking about purchasing a product and the features of the product itself. Let me give you an example.
Sure.
We did an implementation for a company that back then was selling MP3 players. Mm-hmm. And what we found very quickly is that when people were looking for the right MP3 player for them, they weren't asking, how much memory does it have, how much, which is the kind of information that was in the online brochure, right? What they were asking was how many songs can it hold, right? And being able to match the way they perceive the need for a product and the features of the product itself is the next generation sales advisor. If you can do that well, the chances of selling the product increase exponentially. So,
yeah, right now you go online, you go to lots of sites. There are, virtual agents. There are chatbots that exist. I was got an email for a webinar that somebody was putting on that virtually is promising within the space of a couple hours you can build your own chatbot, which seems to have a inherently. If I were to spend 2 hours creating a chatbot, it seems like it'd have inherently less capabilities than what you're talking about. So is there going to be some sort of general agreement about what constitutes an intelligent agent versus a chatbot, or an intelligent chatbot versus something else, just to help clarify for people what's really going on?
Yeah. And Andy, you're pointing the finger at something that is, I think it's kind of plaguing a little bit our industry, and there is such a confusion on the nomenclature and the way things are talking about things, just because, everything is evolving organically. I think this, kind of like the definition that Gartner gives about virtual assistant. And they make a point to call it virtual assistant. And that's why you have heard me using the virtual assistant, virtualization term more than chatbots. Because chatbots are building a name that might not be very... I'm not sure I want to associate my brand with that terminology, simply because chatbots right now are becoming these gimmicky, yes, I can ask a couple of questions. The virtual assistant doesn't know much, and that's a danger for our industry. So we make it a point to say, no, we do a virtual assistant that has certain capability from a dialogue perspective, from an AI perspective, from the creation in terms of using technology. But there is a lot of confusion. I would say this: if we stick with the Gartner vision of the world, there are basically virtual customer assistant, which are the customer-facing assistant, and then there are virtual enterprise assistant that are basically the one that are being used within the enterprise. Then there are these chatbots, but these are more the gimmicky, bots are the gimmicky. Bots is becoming very popular as a term because it's short, to be honest with you. But that's kind of, yeah, it is. It makes sense now. Bot, boom, it's out there. But yeah, so we're being very careful.
Yeah, I was just at a conference last week, and there were several people advertising their capabilities to develop chatbots, but to your point, I mean, it seemed at this stage that most of them were just sort of, the key thing seemed to be that they were able to create like an intelligent emoji, like the old Microsoft paperclip.
So that's a very good point, right? And so what we did, and if you want, your listener can actually get a free account on our website. It's called albertai.com. And they can really, truly, if they're not using it necessarily for professional reason, if they want to just try it, it's free. And they can create virtual assistant out of documents. So up to now, if you wanted to create a virtual assistant using API.ai, using Facebook instant messaging, using some of these other very popular platforms that are there, you basically have to script down all possible questions that somebody may ask. Mm-hmm. What we are offering instead is a way to create a virtual assistant in this version of our platform, which is called Sicura, that is just basically creating a virtual assistant from an existing document. And so why did we do that? Because the typical paradigm is that company design a product, build a product, write a manual for their product, and if we can ingest that manual and create a smart virtual assistant that can dynamically answer questions about the capability of that product, it makes a huge difference for the industry. And that's what we set up to do with this particular version of our platform. So at albertai.com, people can go there, grab it, and that truly you can create something useful because, in fact, I'll give you a preview today. Not in a couple of hours, we're sending out a press release where to demonstrate the technology we have created a site with the virtual assistant on the presidential executive orders. So what we yes go to albertinthehouse.com, like in the White House, right, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's what we've done is we went to the White House .gov site, and we're taking executive orders, and we did it for 4 presidents, so that we didn't want to be apart with the last 4 presidents.
Well, I was going to say we could use some intelligence today, but artificial otherwise, right?
But that's just to say, we want to build virtual assistants that are useful. The gimmicky little bot that just entertains somebody, it's not useful. But if I can, even in the case of this is a completely different arena, right? The political arena. But if I want to find information about an executive order and I don't want to spend the time reading it, I just have a question. Does it do this? Does it do that? What, do people get compensated by being on the committee? Things like that. Mm-hmm. It's wonderful. And so we kind of a civic duty there. Sorry for digressing. I mean,
no, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. So let me, in the few minutes we have left, let me ask some questions, really looking further out in the future, extending where you are with the platform, and not just yourself, but others that you see that are working in the same field. Is one of the things that I'm very curious, and a lot of people are curious about in terms of the impact of AI in sales as we go forward. And one of the great myths that exists currently today is, hey, AI is going to come in and just replace salespeople, right? The salespeople replaced by machines, and And others saying, no, AI is just going to handle the repetitive tasks that, within the sales process, perhaps that free up salespeople to sell more. So how do you see it shaking out?
I definitely, I'm an optimist in general. That's maybe my Italian background, I don't know, but I love life and I think it's going to work out very well. Let me tell you, I see AI as an excellent tool to augment our capabilities. And just to be making a specific example in the sales realm that has to do with enterprise, we have a big enterprise company in the networking space that for which we have created a virtual assistant. We call it a marketing advisor for 150 people at their call center. These are salespeople that are pre-qualifying sales opportunities. So you might imagine this is a huge networking company. There are thousands of SKUs of product. It's impossible for a person to know about our product. So what we did, we created a virtual assistant that does two things for the agents while they're on the call. And this call comes in about any of these products. And these people have been trained for 2 weeks, right? The call comes in. So what they do, they have the virtual assistant as their sidekick, and they can ask information about the product that they're being asked. The virtual assistant will then guide them with the right qualifying question to ask the prospect. And then I will also help them with the strategy of the call. So at a certain point of the call, it will say, okay, now it's time to get a commitment, and here is how you get the commitment. So that's the future of AI. It's augmenting humans' capability, not taking jobs away.
Well, you're talking about guided selling, basically.
Yes.
So,
to a completely new level. Yeah.
And do you see that? To me, that seems like that's going to be really applicable, sort of, in a more transactional type of product or service that you're selling. But it seems like the more complex you get, I still think that, and you get more stakeholders involved in a decision, then that becomes a little more problematic. And certainly the guide part can help to a degree, but at some point people have to get involved.
Right. I would, and what's interesting, because I have two examples. So I have these networking companies. So you're right. They're essentially selling a box. So if you're selling a box, the application I just described will definitely help you. Mm-hmm. Then I've also dealt with another big company that deals with logistics. They can still use a tool, but it's used in a different way. So these are essentially this company in logistics does B2B call, where you're right, there is a strategy, there is a complexity that goes beyond selling a box. And for that one, you can still use AI, but it has a different role. So there the role is, again, the information that were typically packaged in a sales training manual now are available interactively. So just before a call, wait a second, what are the 3 key points that I have to touch on? Boom, here they are. So you're right, the AI is going to do different things in different situations, but it's still going to play a role to help agents and salespeople.
So how do you see, and not that this is a trick question for you, but how do you see you using AI in your own sales?
Oh, no, it's not at all. So we are using it.
Well, no, not today, but going forward, how do you see?
Yeah, no, but even today. So for example, we have done what you just described. So what you just mentioned. So we're using it in our own sales process. So the material that we would typically have in the sales training is now part of a virtual assistant, mm-hmm. and that virtual assistant is a tab, and people can see at albertai.com, they can see how they can do this integration very quickly in Salesforce. So we add a tab in Salesforce, in Salesforce.com, that actually is our virtual assistant. So without even leaving Salesforce, people, our salespeople can say, okay, wait a second, when am I supposed to convert a lead into a prospect? When am I supposed to convert them into a customer? So what we identify, again, there are different type of information. There are information about the product they're selling. the policies and procedure that they're selling, and the tools that they're selling. These are the three domains of knowledge that we are training our virtual assistant on, so that it can help our salespeople when they're on a call or when they're preparing. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, it seems like we think sort of project forward is one sort of big evolving space in sales right now is sort of content management, sales enablement, if you will. And it seems like that folds very nicely into what you're just talking about, so that it makes it very seamless for the salespeople to be able to access the content they need at any one point in time in the sales process.
Absolutely. And the next example I'm going to give you, it's a little bit kind of dorky, etc., but we'll have fun with it. I'll send you a video as soon as it's ready. It's us using wearable technology 2.0 and Google Assistant to integrate with one of our Alberts, so that you can be literally on the way to your call, on the way to your sales meeting, and ask your watch something related to that meeting. So that's coming, and it's going to be a great work.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's sort of interesting about that, though, too, is at the end of the day, and we can have another conversation about this, is I'm fascinated as I am with this, is we still have to look what the limitations are, because this guidance that could be given to salespeople is still given in a vacuum, right? Because it's not there. It doesn't see the person the sales rep is dealing with. What it does to me is it sort of maybe narrows the field of possibilities they might have to contend with. But it's what's still going to happen when you talk to another person is unknowable in advance.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree that human interaction and continue to be connected with other people, it's going to be key and very important. These, as you mentioned, they're tools, right? They're just tools, but they're going to become more and more prevalent and important in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good. Well, Diego, unfortunately, we've run out of time, but tell folks how they can find out more about what you do and noHold, and as well as Albert. You talked about albertai.com, and connect with you.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way. albertai.com. I'm pointing them there because there is a free downloadable thing that I think it's intriguing. And then to connect with me, Diego at noHold.com, and noHold is nohold.com.
Excellent. Well, good. Well, thank you. Thank you again for joining us.
No problem. Thank you. It was a pleasure, and very interesting. Thanks.
And friends, thank you for spending this time with me today. Come back, join me again tomorrow for another great episode of Accelerate. Until then, if you get a chance, please go to iTunes, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Leave a review for Accelerate. We want to hear what we can do to make this an even more valuable experience for you. So thanks again for joining me. Until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.